are within those guidelines. And I'm not too sure how we can get around that. Certainly, I think ComReg needs to be beefed up. I think it needs to be given extra resources. I think it needs to get extra funding. And I think the more research we can do in this area, the better for everyone concerned. And I certainly would have grave concerns about the long-term effects of the masts. And I think the jury certainly is still out on the harmful effects of these mobile phone masts. But I do think also they are a necessary evil, because unfortunately, I think we've 4 million mobile phones in the country at the moment. So that's the difficulty we all face.
Okay, thank you. Finally, Dr. Jimmy Devons.
Thank you, Chairman. And again, like the other members, I'd like to thank you for your presentation. Some years ago, as a member of Sligo County Council, we were faced with a plethora of applications for phone masts. And at that time, we, as a group, carried out a very thorough search of the world literature. And I have to say the results were fairly equivocal at the end of the day. We really couldn't find definite evidence for or against. So could I just very briefly pose 3 questions to you? The first is, are certain people more prone or more sensitive to electromagnetic radiation than others? And if so, how does one ascertain that? Is it through the unfortunate person having the experience, or are there any tests that can be done to distinguish one from the other? And finally, here in this room, presumably there are some electromagnetic radiation rays here. Are people being affected here today? As I thought, looking at some of you, that was so. And how does one shield oneself from that? That's the question I would pose. I mean, for example, I have a mobile phone here, and most of the members would have mobile phones. Are they affecting you as we're sitting here?
Can you?
Can affect some people.
How does it affect you?
Well, can I just make
sure,
a comment first?
I just posed the question.
You've asked some questions and made some comments, and it reveals the complexity of the situation. This is not a simple black and white answer, a problem. It's quite complex, as anyone here will tell you. I can't answer all the questions, but there are people who will answer some of them. First of all, the schools, to take up John's question. And John and I go back a long way on this, because Enda Dalton and myself visited John when he was Lord Mayor in the Mansion House many, many years ago. I can't remember how many years. John probably would. And just on the schools, there was an email last night informing me that a mast had been turned down because it was 150 metres from a school in Littlehampton in Sussex. And that was the reason, because it was too near the school, which is 150 metres. My old school, I retired from teaching some years ago, now has a mast about the similar distance, 150 metres from it, an ESB mast in Vernon Avenue in Clontarf. And it may be of interest to know that the clinic underneath the mast appears to have closed down. I don't know why. Now, there are lots of, on different types of radiation. I will defer to Enda Dalton, probably has more expertise than I have in this.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, John asked this question, I think, about the different forms of radiation, or what they consist of. I don't know many of you understand radiation in any way, but generally speaking, it's divided into 2 various sets within a spectrum of electromagnetic waves, which are generated by literally shaking electrons around in space particularly. And they're divided at the line of where we see visible light. Lower side is called non-ionizing radiation, and the upper side is called ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation is the one we refer to when we're talking about nuclear physics, X-rays, and that sort of thing. Non-ionizing radiation is more or less in the field of radio and television and telephones. Now, the spectrum is divided into frequencies, and each frequency has its own characteristics and is used for specific purposes. The frequency that's used for the mobile phone industry is in or around what they call 900 megahertz, which means 900 million oscillations per second. And it's in and around that particular frequency, which is highly penetrative, incidentally, can penetrate about 30 feet of concrete. that we're talking about. And this is the one that's used by the mobile telephone industry because of the fact that it can do this, and you can receive information on your phone, inside buildings and in awkward places. But unfortunately, it does appear to me as that particular range